What's up? Welcome to my tutorial video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to turn a pop can, beer can, anything like that. Today we're using this Monster Energy can into an inline fishing spinner. So first things first, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to figure out where on the can I want to turn into my spinner. So for all intensive purposes, what I'm going to use, because I've got lots of length to it, I'm going to use part of this green line in the DM. So I start with a little cut, and then I start cutting out a rectangle. I want to make sure that the green is as centered as possible, so I have excess to be able to cut off. So there we go, we've cut out our section. This is what the section looks like. From here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this in half. Again, what I want to do is try to keep that green line relatively centered, but for this one, I actually want it a little bit off center, so it's kind of like on the outer side of the spoon. So next thing, what I'm going to do is I've created a press, which is kind of like a mold, a cast, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to center it in my circle here, face down for whatever side I want to be on the outside of the spoon. And I'm going to make sure that I've got my press ready to push it in. So now that I've got it centered and I've kind of pressed it in a little bit, we're going to head over to the vise. So I'm double checking here to make sure that I've got it exactly where I want it. Now, another thing that I want to make sure the fold is where it's going to attach to the spinner. Okay, so now that I've got my piece that's all kind of rounded off, I want to start cutting out the shape of my spoon. So there we go, we've got it shaped out. Now I need to drill a hole into the upper part of it, but it's got to be as close to the edge as possible so that it has lots of clearance on the actual spinner. So now that I've drilled my hole, I don't find that's enough to keep it together. It still ends up kind of flimsy, falling apart, so nothing a little bit of super glue can't help. And there we go. Now that that part's done, we're going to move on to tying the actual inline spinner. We've got brass snare wire that you can pick up at Walmart, Canadian Tire, that sort of stuff. Feed your first bead on there first, and then put your hook on. Today I'm using just a size 4 treble hook. You put your hook on, fold that over that first bit, so that way your hook's on there and your bead is above it. Fold this as flat as you can, feed it back through your bead, and push that down and tight. So that way, this is what you're left with. Now you want to fold this back over itself so that it stays in position. Hope y'all can see this kind of well enough. It's not focusing. And you want to cut off that excess. So from there, we've got the beginning of our inline spinner, and you want to figure out kind of how much length you want. So realistically, I want it to be about that big, but I need some excess to tie off, so I'm going to cut it right around here. So from here, you've got the beginning of your spinner. You throw some more beads on here. I'm going to throw, I've got gold, purple, and green. And some whites, actually, too. So throw 3 or 4 beads on there. That way there's enough clearance so that your blade can spin freely. So I've got a few beads on there now. Try to keep it nice and straight so that you're not bending it out of place. And then you need one of these little horseshoe clasps that we are going to feed through the hole that we cut in our spinner, or in our blade. And we want to make sure that the concave side is facing down towards the hook when we go to feed it on. So now that we've fed it on, we've got the horseshoe clasp, the blade is attached. We want to make sure that there's lots of clearance. It's easier to trim these up before they're actually attached to the spinner. With this one, I'm going to trim a little bit of the excess off. You want this to be able to spin as freely as possible. So there we go. Now that that's on there, all we got to do is add a few more beads to the top of it. So I'm going to go gold, green, purple, gold. So now that we've got all of our beads on there and everything's all together, this is spinning freely. There's no issues there with that spinning. We got to tie off the top of it. So for that, we're going to fold this over again at the top and start twisting it around the top of the spinner. And if you've done this right, you really shouldn't have much excess left over. You cut off that little tail, and that's it.